Hello, how are we all doing? Hi, welcome to the video. Today, I'm going to be recommending you books based on vibes. It's a very technical recommendations system, I'm sure you can appreciate and imagine. Lots of databases, lots of numbers have been crunched to create this list of 10 books based purely on vibes. Basically, I went about my shelves and I picked out books that I've read in the past and have really stayed with me because of the vibe, and I thought that that would be a fun way to recommend you some books. So I'm going to tell you what they're about as well, but also I'm just going to base it on the vibes, and we're going to see if you like the vibes, maybe you want to pick up the book. The first book is Something Wild and Wonderful by Anita Kelly. This gives such wholesome vibes. This gives nature outdoors. It gives unity and the brilliance of meeting a stranger and having them then mean something in your life. This gives you all those warm, fuzzy kind of vibes, but also that of which you could go on an adventure and you could try something new and you could experience something new, and that in itself is exciting, and that is very much at the heart of this book. I loved this book a lot. I read it about 2 years ago and it's really stayed with me since then. I was going through a real kick of reading adventure-y kind of base books, especially stuff involving the PCT, which is the Pacific Crest Trail. It's a massively long hike that you can do over months in America, and it's following two characters who do that hike that are strangers to each other at the beginning of the hike and then come to know each other from seeing each other at various different points across the route. It's a romance, it's an adventure, it's also, I think any book about the PCT, you kind of have the conversation of why people are doing it. People are doing it for different reasons and their motivations, and it very much has that at its heart as well. And it's fantastic, and it has all the wholesome vibes to it. I'm going to say vibes too many times in this video. I'm realising that now. We're going to try and find alternative words for the word vibes. The Girls by Emma Cline. Oh, this feels dusty. Hang on. I do dust, I promise, but this I think has fallen prey to being in a little trap of dust. Anyway, The Girls by Emma Cline. Did I read this year? I think this was this year. Yeah, this summer. I'm going to say vibes again. The vibes that this book gives off. Summer, kind of a hippie, free experience, cult elements to it. The kind of feeling of being young and unsure of everything, but feeling like you want a direction but not really knowing the direction. In this, we're following our main character, who is a young girl during the summer holidays, and she kind of gets involved in this cult of people who are following this one specific guy who she just kind of gets taken under the wing of them and gets swept up in what they're doing, which leads towards something that we know is like the climax point of the book, that we know it's going towards. We don't know what it is exactly, what's happening, and how our main character basically gets involved in that. This one speaks so strongly to me for the atmosphere and the ambience and the vibes of it, because of how clearly I could see it in my head with the imagery, the hot sticky summer vibes, the stress of what was happening, but also at the same time the fact that the character was just going along with it all and being a bit unsure herself in what was happening. And I think that it just captures that perfectly. And the cover of this is pretty much a perfect representation of the kind of experience you're going to have when reading it. Like the colour schemes, the editing, the kind of flare in the corner, it all just paints towards that hot sticky summer of strangeness for our main character. Good Girls Don't Die by Christina Henry. If you have watched my most recent horror reads vlog, you will see me absolutely loving this. It was so good, and I had to pick this one out because this has so many different types of vibes to it, because I hate that I'm saying vibes. This has so many different story tropes to it that I think it makes an interesting one to recommend purely based on the vibes of it. So, the vibes. Hunger Games type of thing. Slasher, cabin in the woods. Patriarchal rage and the isolation of a woman on her own who knows that something is wrong. This is a real feminist women power kind of book. It's slamming down on the patriarchal system that tries to control the women in this book. If you like that kind of vibe, this is for you. If you especially like that kind of vibe merged in with other tropes and storylines and genres, then this is for you. This is following three different women who are each in their own horror situation, and they don't know how they've got into these situations. It's very strange to them, and they, through the course of their own chapters, try to get out of these situations. And we're seeing the women in these situations. How many times can I say situations? I'm just repeating words today. That's what we're doing today. The women in these scenarios are trying to get out of them, but you're also trying to see how they all knit together and how they're related, that each of their stories are related to each other. I loved this. I loved it for the fact that it covered so many different types of horror tropes. I loved it for the meta element of it being aware of the horror tropes in this way, and the characters being aware and interacting with those horror tropes, but also just generally the writing just gave such a clear image as to what was happening, and you can tell how much Christina Henry clearly loves horror because the horror vibes are immaculate. If We Were Villains by M. Maurier, one of my favourite books, if not my favourite book of all time. My favourite book, we're gonna go there. My favourite book of all time. I would love to do a reread of this soon and annotate a copy. I'm also scared to do that because I think I just read this at such a perfect time, and that really, combined with it being just fantastic, just elevated the reading experience for me. This is the vibiest of vibey vibe books. The atmosphere is just perfect for this book. It's got such clear settings. It's at this university school environment and it's beautiful, it's old, it has this ambience to it that just feels luxury and mysterious and really like you are there with these characters. This book follows a group of students, but the very start of the novel is introducing a character, one of these students, who is being released from prison for a crime that he may or may not have committed. The rest of this book is then following these characters leading up to the point of that crime, so you kind of know some of the outcome, but you don't know the full extent of it. It's just fantastic. Following these students, they're Shakespeare students, they're all studying theatre and Shakespeare, and you've got that integrated throughout it. The structure of this is play-like, which is just brilliant, and it just breaks up the story in such an interesting way. But following these students in this kind of intense environment, knowing where things are going, just builds and builds on the atmosphere as well. This is a dark academia novel. I should have started with that in the vibe section, shouldn't I? Dark academia vibes. So it instantly has all of those perfect, cozy, intellectual elements to it that just fit so well into the dark academia genre, and it just captures that so brilliantly. It's such an interesting novel to read about as well because you are getting the knowledge of Shakespeare throughout it as well, and I like it when you are reading a book in which the characters have this study element or a special knowledge of a certain subject, and then you as a reader get to consume and absorb that knowledge as well just from reading the book, and it does a brilliant job of that. I just love this so much. I think my main thing for the vibes of this is the atmosphere of it, the kind of grand school. I can still see it so clearly in my head, and the room in which these characters meet and the classes and things like that. It's just so perfectly ingrained in that dark academia education route, and just is everything I think a dark academia novel should be, and explores that genre so incredibly well. M.L. Rio is such a fantastic author. I'm actually currently wearing a t-shirt from the Hot Wax tour as well, another fantastic book by M.L. Rio, but just M.L. Rio can do no wrong in my eyes, just such a good writer. Lonely Castle in the Mirror by Mitsuki Sujimura. I finished this like 3 days ago and it was so good. It was so good, and I just needed an excuse to talk about it in a video. The vibes for this one, it's a Japanese translated fiction. It has got the fantasy vibes of the castle that we're experiencing through the mirror. So we get this castle. It's pretty much just set within the castle and around our main character's home. So the castle setting isn't like really vast, but we do have multiple different rooms in it, but it's so clear. There's an anime film for this. I haven't watched it yet, but I watched the trailer, and I have never seen such an accurate representation of what I've been picturing in my head reflected on screen, and I think obviously with the fact that it's animated means that it is easier to make it as the author intended it, but that doesn't mean that it's necessarily going to be exactly the same as it was in my head, and this was. So like the description and the atmosphere was just perfect for this. The fantasy vibes are brilliant because it's got this idea of there's 7 students that have gone through a mirror that have led them to this magical castle, and they have 1 year to be able to find a key that unlocks a wishing room, and they can make one wish. Only one person can make one wish, so it's this challenge to try and find the key. That's kind of the initial outline of the story. So you have the fantasy element there, you have this competition, but you've also, I think one of the main vibes of this book is community and loneliness. That is what is tying these characters together. They all have this loneliness to them. They're all not going to school for whatever reasons, and it depicts that in such a beautiful and calming way. This has healing fiction vibes to it as well, but so much more than that. It's got the fantasy, the healing, the unity, the community, and at the heart of it all as well, this idea of this wish and what would you wish for, and should this wish be granted, should one person get this wish. And oh, it's so beautiful. There's so beautiful. There's so much more to it as well that I won't tread on for fear of spoilers, but I loved it so much, and it has such a beautiful reading experience about it. It's got such lovely vibes, and I can't recommend it enough. The calmingness of the cover is very much reflected throughout the book, and the castle on the back as well. I haven't spoken about this book for a little while, but I did go through a period where it was all I spoke about. Rebecca by Daphne du Maurier. This is a brilliant Gothic novel. It's following our main character who is nameless throughout, and she goes to live at Mandalay with her new husband, but the haunting ghost of Rebecca, the deceased previous wife, is still haunting the house. The vibes in this speak for themselves, really, with Gothic and with the element of this haunting, but also the isolation of this house. So you've got this brilliantly strange, unsettling atmosphere. You've got the loneliness again, the isolation, the beautiful setting of this house as well, and our main character like finding her footing in this experience as well. It's so interesting because it kind of completely strips her of her personality by never giving her a name, and yet the title character name is that of the wife who has passed away, and her presence is still so there that our main character is struggling to make her presence known and make her life, really adapt into this new life. And I just think that this does such a brilliant job of capturing that alongside this gorgeous Gothic atmosphere. And this, for me, when I think of Gothic horror, is the one. Like, Gothic horror isn't really, or it can be, but it doesn't tend to be as scary type of horror, and instead it very much focuses on the vibes. So it's perfect for a book about vibes, or a recommendations video about vibes. So it very much centers around the atmosphere and the ambience, and this does such a good job of that. And whilst it's a slower paced story and it isn't like a constant thrilling story, I think that if you are reading this because you just want something slower paced, because you want something that has got that unsettling, uncanny element to it, and something with that isolated setting and that brilliantly Gothic setting to it as well, then you can't go wrong with Rebecca. The Book of the Most Precious Substance by Sarah Graham. This is one of the vibiest vibey books of Vibeland as well. This is a brilliantly dark, seductive kind of novel. If you like a bit of a sexy book, this is for you. This is following our main character who is going on this search for this book that is like sex occult magic in a book. If I remember rightly, it's been a couple of years since I read this, but the vibes of this one and the atmosphere of this have stayed with me for so long. I love books about books anyway. I love when you have a character that loves books and when you have other characters that have this passion for reading. And what the mission she goes on to try and find this strange book she's after is excellent. But also, this is just like, again, this is another one with a cover I feel like really encapsulates the experience of the book. The darker colours with the warmth of the orange in there is pretty much how this felt as well. It just feels like a seductive book, which I feel like if you read it, you'll know what I mean. And if you haven't, you might be like, what do you mean a seductive book? But it makes sense in my head. It's got that addictive element to it. And obviously being a book about a search for a book of sexual occult magic, it has got a lot of sex in it and a lot of kind of open conversations about that, which I also really loved and found that was done really well. But you've also got this kind of love and adoration of older books and being a book collector and that kind of element to it as well, and being able to meet so many different characters along the journey that also have that passion and that love for books and for literature. So if you are looking for a book that is dark and twisty and interesting like that and sexy but also has that passion for literature and books, then I think this one would be for you. Palm Meridian by Grace Flahive. I recently got to see this author talk about this book and it made me appreciate it even more. This is a reflective kind of novel. The vibes for this one are futuristic, met with nostalgia for the past, but in a timeline where it's set in the future, but our main character was born in like the 90s, the early 90s, I think. So for me, born in 1995, this felt like nostalgic for seeing her younger years because it's reflective off of this one character's life. Nostalgic for seeing her younger years, but also interested by how her future years were written for years that I haven't lived yet. And it was really interesting because at the heart of this, we're following our main character who knows that she's going to die and she's having one final party, before she does that, and she's looking back on her life, we're in kind of this slightly apocalyptic future where climate change has really, really affected the world and it is not in a good place, and we're following the characters that live at Palm Meridian, which is a retirement space. And we get to look back on our main character's life, so we have that nostalgic vibe to it. It's also got the interesting element of like the discussion of what the world could look like if we don't make any changes and what we're heading towards, which is reflective and terrifying and very much a cautionary tale and a warning for us as to what could be. Obviously, we don't know what's going to happen in our future, but this is one of the paths that, you know, this author has written about and has, I think, very much aired us against in the way that I was reading it. It's got the vibes of community and connection. Again, I love that kind of thing when you've got that kind of group of people that come together. We've got so many different people at this retirement home, but also like the idea of looking back at your life and what you enjoyed and what was important to you and who was important to you is really important too. How many times can I say the word important again? Still repeating words. What's happening to me today? It's a very important book with vibey vibes, and I find it very important that these vibes are important. This is what you come here for, right? This is the kind of reviews you want. I could only assume. Look, if you love books that reflect back on life and that you finish and you think, yeah, I want to make this positive change, or I'm going to appreciate this thing more, then this is for you. Deep Cuts by Holly Brickley. I love this so much. This is up there of favourite book of the year, for sure. This is so good. This was so good. This is so easy to list the vibes for because it is all the nostalgia and the music. We are following our main character who is like late teens when we start this book, or like 19, 20, I can't remember. She's at college, she's at university, so around that age. And then we get to follow her throughout years of her life and her friendship with this guy that she created some music with and what he goes off to do and what she goes off to do. But we have the nostalgia, we have the 90s, we have the noughties. Actually, I think it starts in the early noughties. I'm saying 90s. When? 2000 it starts. So early noughties onwards. So we've got the nostalgia. We've also got the music vibes, which are immaculate in this book. There are so many recommendations. I want to reread this and just jot down everything. I think there are lists out there now, but there's chapter headings that are named after various different songs, but then there's also so many songs mentioned throughout. This just gave me such an itch to listen to so many different new bits of music that I hadn't listened to before. And I've found songs off the back of listening or reading this book that I've listened to that I've absolutely loved, and new artists that I love. It's just so good in that sense. Like, it captures any music lover's heart, I think, and anybody that has that love of the nostalgia and looking back at the noughties and seeing these characters' lives develop. I love when you get to follow a character over multiple years and you get to see them go through all the motions of life and see how they come out the other end. Because it's not always positive, it's not always negative, but it's sometimes, you know, when authors can reflect it well and it feels genuine. Because in life, you know, you don't necessarily get guaranteed a happy ending at all. And I think that when books do that, which this does, it shows you the ups and downs so well. It just feels even more realistic for you to just really absorb yourself into. And I think this did such a good job of this. And the atmosphere was excellent. Loved the characters, loved the setting, loved the music. And finally, for recommending you books based on their vibes, I couldn't not talk about Mexican Gothic by Sylvia Moreno-Garcia. This is currently, of the ones I've read, my favourite Sylvia Moreno-Garcia book. I love their writing so much. This is another Gothic horror, which again I think sells themselves on the vibe front, but there is a word for books about mushrooms, and I can't remember what it is, but this is one of those, that vibe, the book about mushrooms vibe. It's got this haunting, isolated element, but this is following our main character. I think it's her cousin. I should check this. It is her cousin. Her cousin has just been married and she sends a letter to our main character basically asking her to help. So our main character goes to stay with her cousin and realises some strange things are going on. It's isolated, it's mushrooms, it's this haunting setting throughout because you know something's a little bit off, but you don't really know exactly what, and you don't quite know who to trust. Again, visually very strong for me. I can still see the house, I can see the garden area of the house and the town this is set in, the characters. It really, really stuck with me, and I think because this was for me one of the first kind of mushroomy spore type horrors I read, it kind of set the bar for all the other ones I've read since, and I just think this is absolutely fantastic. If you like those kind of horrors, I think you will absolutely love this. Okay, those are my book recommendations based on vibes. Hopefully that was based on vibes. I feel I had to tell you a little bit about what the book's about as well, because otherwise you'll just be like, well, that's great that it's Gothic, but what's it about? So those are my 10 recommendations based on vibes. I hope you enjoyed. Let me know if you've read any of these. Let me know if you have any recommendations based on vibes in the comments. Thank you so much for watching. I will see you in the next one.